What's up guys, welcome back to Michael's house, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to replace an old doorknob to a new lockable doorknob like this. I'm also going to be showing you a critical step that involves this little pin that you need to get right if you want to prevent shimming of your lock. Feel free to jump to that part of the video if you're already familiar with the basics of installing a doorknob. Today I'll be installing a Wiser model lock. I got this off of Amazon and it was about $27, so pretty reasonable, especially when you're getting the Wiser name. Inside the pack, we have both sides of the knob, the strike plate, the screws, the latch, and of course, the keys. In case you aren't familiar with the mechanics of a doorknob, here's a quick demo of how it works. Both knobs will lock into each other using some screws, and the knobs will intersect the latch using the square mechanism that you can see in the middle. And then once you spin the doorknob, it'll spin that square mechanism, retracting the latch. So now getting into the install, first things first, we're going to need to remove the old knob, and to do this we're going to take a screwdriver and unscrew the two screws securing it in place. Depending on the dimensions of the knob, this can be pretty tricky. You're going to find that the knob prevents you getting an ideal angle with your screwdriver, so you're just going to have to kind of struggle through this. What I found best is that you start it off with the screwdriver, and then if it gets really tight you can use your fingers to back it out the rest of the way. Once both screws are out of the doorknob, both sides should pull out relatively easily like so. Now that the knobs are out, we'll need to remove the latch, and to do this you'll need a screwdriver to insert it behind the latch like so. It helps to wiggle it a little bit to make sure that everything is a little bit looser, and to try and make sure you line it up straight so that when you're applying pressure it'll come directly out. Once you're sure things are lined up, you can apply some pressure by pulling with your index fingers and pushing with your thumb, and if everything is done correctly it should come out like so. Now to replace it with the new latch, depending on what you had there before, you can either leave that faceplate on or you can remove it like I'm doing here now. You simply kind of rotate the latch and then it should pop right out. Next, we're going to want to dry fit this to make sure that the square mechanism is in the proper position of the latch. So once you line it up, you should see that the square mechanism is roughly centered with the hole, and once you're sure of that, you can insert it by just pushing it straight in. Once it's actually into the door, I would double check again to make sure that that square mechanism is exactly where you want it. Typically these will be a standard size, so you don't have to worry about it. Once that's in place, we're going to need to insert the doorknobs now. So I'd start off by inserting the long end first, like so. And once that's in place, you can insert the other doorknob. After this, we're going to need to drive in those supplied screws. And to do this, you're going to want to rotate that metal faceplate along the door so that you can see that the holes from both doorknobs are lined up with each other. Typically, you'll have a bunch of different screws that come with your set. You want to use the longest screws. The other two screws are typically to insert the faceplate or the strike plate into the door. So like before, what I find is helpful is to start off by using your fingers to get this process done, especially since that screw is going to be the longest initially. And once those are started off, you can finish it off with your screwdriver or drill. And after that, for most folks, hopefully you'll be done. But in case things didn't go quite as smoothly, here are some troubleshooting tips. For me, the issue I ran into when I closed the door was the latch wasn't actually catching. I could close the door and open it just by pulling on the knob without needing to turn it, which meant that the latch wasn't extending once the door was closed. So to fix this, I had to remove the strike plate and chisel some of the wood off to reposition the strike plate further forward. Since I didn't have a chisel, I used a flathead screwdriver and a hammer. You want to be careful not to take too much wood off. I recommend doing 1 to 2 millimeters when checking to see if the latch will close. Make sure to take your time when doing this, If you take off too much, it's not the end of the world. You can always reposition the strike plate by screwing it in a different position, even if it doesn't perfectly line up with the wood. But do take your time and try and get it right the first time. Something else to keep in mind that relates to the alignment of the latch is you'll notice that there's a pin along the flat side of the latch. You want to ensure that this does not go into the hole of the door frame when you close the door. This is called an anti-shim pin and relates to my crucial install tip that I alluded to before. This pin prevents potential intruders from shimming the lock, which is when people try to use a credit card or other similar items to insert into the door frame and get behind the latch and manually retract it so that they can open the door. So the way that this pin works is once the door is shut, the pin is depressed and an internal mechanism prevents the latch from being retracted if someone tries to shim it. You can see that I'm mimicking this mechanism by holding the pin partially retracted while the latch is fully extended. And you can see I'm pushing on the latch and it doesn't go in, which reduces the chances of your door being shimmed open. And for this reason, it's very crucial that this pin doesn't enter the latch hole, as if it does, then this whole system won't work. Now back to the final steps of the install. After you've chiseled off the necessary amount and reinstalled the strike plate, you should be good to go. Quick tip, if you didn't need to reposition the strike plate very far forward, you may need to drill some new pilot holes so the screws don't go into the old holes, pushing it back into the original position. Now that we're all done, here's a clip of me operating the doorknob and testing the lock. As for the lock itself, it's pretty robust, and with a name like Wiser, you know it's a brand you can trust. Well, that's it for today's video. If you're planning to take on a project like this and want to pick up this particular lock for yourself, I've linked it in the description. Full disclaimer, if you use this code, I do get a slight kickback, but that's at no additional cost to you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. This is Michael's House, signing off. Peace.